right. Scooch over a little bit more and be a little bit more friendly. There you go. All right. Now we're really close. All right, guys. Welcome to the Uncle Fish Talk Show podcast, whatever you want to call it. That's what we're going with. I have Luke from Z-Belts and Greg GT Taylor. No autographs at the end of this. Sorry. You can try to find their addresses if you want, but that's all. So I'm going to go right into it with Luke. Where did your striped bass career begin?
On my grandfather's boat when I was a wee little baby.
Poacher.
I was a little boy, poaching fish. No, fishing up in the Narragansett Bay. I grew up in the East Bay, so the Narragansett Bay was always my playground. I didn't surf cast all that much when I was younger. When I went down to URI, I started surf casting in South County. So concentrating on surf casting would probably be when I was 18 in
Okay.
South County, Narragansett, Charlestown. Stretch in between.
How old are you now?
34.
Wow, it's been a long time.
Been a little bit.
Yeah. All right, Greg, where did your striped bass career start?
I was like probably 4 or 5 when I caught my first striper from the surf. My dad was always a big surf fisherman in Delaware. So I'm 36 now. It's been about 30 years. And, I did a little freshwater stuff too. But once I got a car, turned 16, I started traveling the coast and ended up here in Rhode Island.
And so now you're what a lot of these guys, and myself included, think that you're a legendary local guy. So where did your progression from just starting striped bass fishing?
I actually came out of the womb with a surf rod in my hand.
Just starting striped bass fishing.
I kind of did.
So where you are now, talk us through that progression a little bit.
Yeah, well, when I moved up here, Luke hit me up immediately. He was like,
Bullshit.
dude, can we please go fishing?
Bullshit.
And I after a couple years, I was like, all right, I'll take him on as like a mentor, But no, I moved
That's
up.
right. I mentored you in all things fishing.
Oh, okay.
You would have taken me on as an apprentice.
Apprentice. There you go.
Okay.
I took you on as your mentor.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Either way, so COVID happened around 2019. I quit my job, packed my truck, went on a fishing trip, went to Montauk. My truck broke down.
Hold on, we got a dog.
He's fine. Just let him be. He's not bothering
I'll
anybody.
sneak by, Greg.
Will likes yeah, Luke likes that.
He was sniffing me in all the right places.
Come on, bud. Good boy. Sorry, quick pause. Always forget about the dog. He's about gigantic. You see the table move? That's him.
He's the Stephen Payne of dogs.
All right. So
Yeah.
seriously, what got you to being Greg Taylor?
Yeah, well, that's when it really took off, honestly, when COVID happened. It's always been like my passion, striper fishing. And I knew Jersey pretty good by then, Long Island pretty good, and even New England a little bit, but I was just driving so much. So, like I said, I quit my job, I packed my truck, I went to Montauk, and in Montauk, my truck broke down, and I just decided to hang out for a couple months. It was
Wow.
Yeah, August till like October. I had some money saved up from my job, but I was like eating. There's not much out in Montauk if you've ever been there. So
There's
like,
that 7-Eleven that's
Yeah.
does the most business of any 7-Eleven in the entire world.
right. And I actually don't eat fish, but like I was catching keepers and eating them and kind of camping out. It was awesome. And then Mike Benzinger called me and he said Rhode Island was pretty good. So I decided to get my truck fixed. In September, I headed up to Rhode Island, 2020, and just ended up staying. It was just a fishing trip that kind of never ended.
Is that when you kind of where did Will? Because you have a strong relationship with Will from 401. So where did Will kind of come into that mix?
Yeah, so I met him the first night I was in Rhode Island at a spot, and he actually helped. He was a big part of me being able to stay here because, so I got here in September. I was still living out of my truck. I was parked at Quaney Breachway, just camping, and it started to get cold. It was like Thanksgiving. I needed somewhere to stay. I knew Will, and Will said, I know a guy who's got a commercial boat that you could probably sleep on that's got some heat. Sounded good, and but the guy was legitimately a crackhead, Bob Charenzia. He smoked crack. He smoked crack every day, and this
Why are you fucking throwing him under the bus?
dude, because everybody,
I'm
everybody
sorry.
knows him.
Sorry,
Everybody
sorry,
knows him.
Bob.
Honorable mention.
I'm
Honestly,
sorry.
no, don't say sorry to Bob, okay? say sorry to me, dude. I was sleeping there, mice were running over my face, like eating my food, and it was just a shithole. And then, so I had to get out of there. So I got out of there, and Will actually rented me a camper, and
Crack is good. Yeah, Mr. Poseidon. Sure it is.
Mr. P knows. Yeah. So then he rented me a camper and got me a plot of land on this gypsy farm in the woods in Exeter.
On a gypsy farm.
Yo, so you want to hear?
How long did you live at a gypsy farm
For the winter. For the winter, dude.
I wintered over in the gypsy farm.
Yeah. Bro, this place
Fucking
was crazy.
unbelievable. Sorry.
My neighbor. This is a true story. And my neighbor, right? He had like 3 fingers on this hand, like 2 on this hand from like chainsaw accidents, and he drank so much that he would hallucinate, right? This motherfucker, dude. I'm sleeping in my camper one night, and I hear a bang at the door and see like red and blue lights flashing out on our farm 3 miles into the woods. And EMT comes in, and he sees me sleeping there, and I just hear him say to himself, "What the fuck is this place?" Right? So I walk outside, and my drunk neighbor's out there, and he goes, "There he is. He's dead in there. I seen him out. He's blue and he's cold in there." And he was hallucinating, thought I was dead in this camper. 3 ambulances, cops. Like, I threatened this. I'm like, dude, if you ever come near me again, I will kill you. But yeah, that was just one story. Yeah, and then I decided
Alright,
to
so you
say.
are on the gypsy farm.
Yeah.
I gotta keep you on track here about striped bass fishing.
Yeah.
We're on the gypsy farm.
Yeah.
Alright? Will got you there, you're living in this piece of land, and are you fishing while you're
Oh,
staying?
every night.
Every night. Okay.
Not working yet.
Yep. So now you're just grinding out really hard. So that's so I think a lot of the time, like, right? So like I've had, just to relate to myself, I've had nights where I've gone out and I've grinded the night before, and then you go on Facebook or Instagram the next day and you're out there holding this gigantic fish in this blurry, fucked up picture, but I grinded really hard, didn't get anything, and the next night, like, you've got this gigantic fish, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you just grind really hard, right? And that's how you get into all these nice fish.
Absolutely, dude. I don't think I'm that great of a fisherman. Definitely better than Luke, but I just fish a lot. And my theory is like, I mean, if anybody fished as much as I did, they'd catch more big fish. Like, I fish more than anybody I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you definitely fish more than anybody I know too. So Luke, maybe not more than Luke. He's over here. He's getting really hot, man. He's coming. So you started striped bass fishing with your grandfather, and then now you're the owner of Z Belts, and now you make a bag, and you're working on a fishing rod. Take us kind of through that progression, man, because it's amazing what you've done with a local business that's really generated for local guys and girls to have a great product that's really affordable. So kind of take us through that.
Yeah, so I did a lot of freshwater fishing as well. I started really young on the boat, and then they got rid of the boat. I got some kayaks, and I did a lot of largemouth bass fishing. And I've always been one to tinker with all my gear and modify it to make it suit my needs better. Always bought stuff and then, fixed it, ripped it apart and put it back together. It's just kind of always what I've been into. And I had no inclination to make any kind of surf casting equipment whatsoever. I just made my own belt, which was the first Z belt, and I was using it, and it worked really well for me, and it was super comfortable. And I started telling people about it, and then more people wanted it, and really it's just kind of taken off from there. So it was really incredibly organic, to be honest. Like, I can't stress enough, I had no intention of doing a belt. Nevertheless, any kind of bag or rods or anything else I might have in the works right now. So it's been really cool. I was always just someone that fished a whole lot and liked modding my own stuff, and it just kind of fell into my lap. And when I saw how much people were digging the belt, it was just me running everything, doing everything. So all the Instagram and ads, anything I did was just me fishing with my modified 2-2 bag that I made. And everyone started commenting on everything, saying, "Hey, I want the bag, when are you coming out with the bag?" So then I made the bag, the 2-tube, that went extremely well. then people asked for single tube pouches, so I started making single tube pouches, tall and short. And then people asked for the 3 tubes, so I did that. And I was always goofing around building rods, and I started working with Stryker because they agreed to they would, prototype for me any rod that I wanted. So I went through a few different iterations, and then I arrived at 2 different blanks that I'm really happy with, 2 moderates.
Now, one of those.
I
Sorry.
was gonna say, tell me about that first cast you took with a Stryker rod.
So I have 2 models. I have the 1068 and the 1108T. The 1068 is 10.5 foot, 50-50 split. It's moderate action. I'm giving it a conservative rating of a 1/2 ounce to 6 ounces currently. So that was the 3rd prototype that they had.
1/2 ounce to 6 ounces.
It was originally 1 ounce to 6 ounces.
I throw weightless soft plastics on this thing. Big
Wow.
ones.
Yeah, so it was originally 1 to 6, but then we were down at the Hussey throwing 1/2 ounce 3/8 with a paddle tail, and I could, feel it swim. I could feel the bottom. I could cast it further enough for me to bump down the rating a little bit. So, and that's not printed anywhere. That's just, it'll be on the info. The rods are a little bit incognito. I don't have a standard legend on them because they are production custom. So there's no like crazy artwork. It's a tool, right? All my rods are. Rods have always been kind of disposable to me. I beat the shit out of them.
I like the way you just said that. I think that a lot of people look at fishing gear as like stuff and possessions, but like everything down to your vehicle is just a tool to get you to do what you're doing.
Yeah,
so,
and
I think that's really good way to put that.
Nothing lasts forever. Everything requires annual maintenance, and everything falls apart. Machines are prone to break down. Your reel, your rod, everything. Nothing can survive, hard use for a long time. So, I had 1 prototype from them, and it was a little bit too light, so I had them bump it up. Tried that again, a little too light. So on the 3rd prototype, on the lighter model, I built the top end, and I took it out, and on my I taped my reel to it, and on my first cast with that prototype, I caught a 49 pounder, and it was that kind of just did it for that.
You didn't even know the fish was on.
Well, I knew the fish was on. I didn't know it was that big. So again, I had been fishing rods lighter than I was accustomed to, and also more moderate than I was accustomed to. So these rods bend a lot because they're moderate. So they bend parabolically all the way through the handle, which I have experience with because I used to fish lammies. I fished in Evolution for a while. So I'm familiar with moderates, but in the back of my mind, I still have a fast action mentality. So I cast out. I was using a Super Strike bottle plug. Did a few cranks to burn it in, dead stop for 5 seconds, then I slowly started rolling it, and then it was one of the fish just inhaled it. So it wasn't like it hit it like a freight train, it just picked it up and started walking away. We were on 20 to 30 pound class fish for that week leading up to this night. So I just assumed that's what it was. I assumed the rod, again, was a little too light for what I wanted it to be, and that's why it was bending so much. So didn't really take any big runs. I had a little Stella 6K on there, buttery smooth drag, so a couple bzz, 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 bzz. Excuse me?
Stellas?
Okay, so I was on a boulder, 8 feet of water or so, give or take 8 to 10 in front of me, and honestly, I was let down with the rod. I didn't know what was on. The fish was holding bottom right in front of me, and the rod was bent over tip to butt, so I'm thinking to myself, all right, back to the drawing board. I need him to beef it up again. And I thought, this is a prototype, who cares if it breaks? So I reeled down to the water and then leaned back on it to try and break it.
Like it's a tuna.
Well, just because I was like, well, let's see what can happen. If I break the rod, so be it. Because again, I thought it was a 20-pound fish,
Right.
30-pound fish,
Right.
and it was just a really light rod. So put some body weight on it, leaned back, and I saw that 4-foot slab roll up, and saw silver in the moonlight, and I almost simultaneously defecated and came in my waders, and so I had a 40-pound tri-line big game on there leader, because that's what I run, usually 60, 80 or 100, but so I had the 40 on because again it was a
Did you
test
have a
thing.
painted TA clip?
No,
It wasn't painted.
it wasn't painted.
Oh my god.
It was a FG knot from my it was 50-pound Max Quattro braid to the 40-pound leader.
I think if you don't paint your TA clips We have to talk.
Let me
I don't paint my
let me
teeth.
add something about this fish, okay? That Luke got. Even a blind squirrel gets a nut.
This fucking guy. Like you said, Greg, the only reason you catch is because you go out so damn much. If I went out as much as you, shit, I have to wreck it by now, boy. Anyway, so it rolled up. I was freaking out because I saw the size of it. Luckily, the boulder I was on had a nice little channel to the right, and I just slid it right in between the little channel and grabbed it by the gills and hauled it up on the rock, baby. And that was so that kind of explained to me why the rod was bending so much, and I immediately was like, all right, let's move forward with it, because all around I found it to be a really great blank. I continued to use it all year, throwing everything from, like I said, half-ounce jigs with a small paddle tail up to I throw big eels a lot, so 8-10 ounce eels, 20 to 24 inch eels, and it can hook those out there. I've had exceptional results with it.
Can you talk about your live eels for a second? Because I think that, like, myself included, I try, at least 3 or 4 nights throughout the season. I'm jonesed up. I go out to the bait shop, hooked up Bait and Tackle, great place to go. Arthur over there is awesome.
Quaker Lane.
Quaker Lane's really great. Check out your local shops, support those guys. Anyway, so 3 or 4 nights a year for sure, I go out and get some live eels, and like, I might hook up a couple fish, but like 9 times out of 10, my first cast with my eel, the eel is gone. I cast it off the hook. It sucks. It's gone. See you later.
How are you hooking it?
Just one circle hook through the head from the bottom jaw.
Yeah, bottom jaw through an eyeball. The
Bottom jaw through an eyeball, and that's it. That's all you're doing.
So that's the key. So another thing for me is, you're saying 3 or 4 nights over the course of the year. I probably eel at least 1 or 2 nights a week
Same.
throughout the
1
whole
or 2 nights
season.
a
This
week.
last year, seeing him catch a lot of fish on eels, I was like, anybody could do it. So
That's right.
I started throwing the eels a lot more last year, but yeah, bottom jaw, the eye socket keeps it locked in, and you cast. I mean, I can catch multiple big fish on one eel. Yeah.
So
Yeah, wow.
what I do for the eels is, in my garage I have a couple different totes that I keep eels in. They got to be black totes, and I bought a little $10 aerator pump at the pet store for like a fish tank aerator, right? So I'll get eels when I'm out. In season, I almost always have eels in some kind of container in my garage with the aerator going. I got a little net, and then when I go out for the night, I don't do ice. I used to do 2 buckets with ice on the boat. I used to do a lot of different things. Now, they stay in the aerated water until I'm going to leave my house. I put them from the aerated water into one of my mesh eel bags, which is just like a nylon scuba equipment bag. Put them in that, throw them in the bed of my truck, go to the spot, and just carry them in that. I usually put them down. Every couple hours I'll dunk them in the water, but they can live, if it's not super hot, they'll just live in that bag for hours on end. So for me, something that allows me to preserve eels for a longer time is I use like 4 or like 4X hooks. I use tuna hooks between size 6 and size 9.
4X tuna hook.
Yeah, so what I find is the smaller circle hooks, even through the eye socket, it's easier for it to cut through the flesh. Whereas if you use a big,
That's the
beefy
problem that I
4X,
have.
yeah.
That's the problem that I have.
Another thing is casting them, right? So I know you've got lammies, you've got one of the 1108T strikers you're going to be fishing. For the eel, for me, is I'm always looking for a spot where there's deep water close by. I'm not casting for the fences. When I cast an eel, I'm lobbing it out and letting the eel do all the work, right? Like Dave gave that presentation at the club about presenting level sink needles and just floating them in current. I do that all the time with eels. I'll cast it out and just let it run and then twitch it here and there, but it's all about the lob. Use bigger hooks so you don't rip through the eel eye socket as quickly. I've always done a lot with eels. A lot of my mentors were eel guys, so I kind of just picked up fishing eels with them, and they work, in my opinion. Plug bites are great, but if the fish are finicky or you're not sure what's going on at a spot, I almost always bring eels out, even if it's just 1 or 2, just because they're such an effective tool. I mean, I don't think I've caught more fish over 30 pounds on eels than plugs by like a landslide. So many more. It's tough to beat, a real live presentation.
I'll give you a little something. that helped me with eels. Just like with any plug that you're throwing for the first time, it's smart to, see how it works right in front of you. When you have a live eel on and there's some deep water right in front of you, just drop it in the water and see what it does. It's going to go right to the bottom. It swims right to the bottom, And as you cast an eel, it gets less lively, right? So like I like to, I feel like my first like 5 casts with an eel, it's like just letting it get, its energy out. But when you let an eel out there, it's knowing that it goes right to the bottom, then you can kind of feel it on the bottom. I like to just pick it up and then just let it swim to the bottom again.
MJ,
Okay.
be unweighted always for,
unweighted.
for eels from the surf. I do FG knot to a leader to a circle hook. That's my rig that I use.
The Greg rig, though. The Greg rig.
No.
Something I came up with eels. If you like to throw eels and plugs, Luke, when he's throwing eels, kind of just throws eels. So it's nice to tie direct. What I've been doing is a barrel swivel to fluorocarbon to a circle hook. Only like 6 inches of fluorocarbon. So I could take the barrel swivel and just hook it to my TA clip. So like if I have an eel on and I want to switch to a plug real quick, I just take the eel off from the TA clip, put it in my bucket,
Leave it
still
hooked
on
up
the rig,
still. Leave it, it's still
throw
on the
a plug
rig.
on, and kind of do that. But that little bit of fluoro allows for the if you put your circle clip to a TA, it's gonna get the leverage.
It's all right.
You
yeah.
miss every fish that bites your eel. So that little bit of fluoro just lets the eel swim freely.
So
What about when a fish? Not to cut you off. I'm sorry, but something that I think is important is when like a fish picks up an eel. It's not picking up an eel in my experience the same way that it's gonna like blast the plug.
It depends, but I have a kind of a formula for that too. So when I'm fishing an eel with a circle hook, it's as simple as this, because especially from fishing from plugs and you're feeling a hit and then you're setting the hook right away, it's hard to kind of remind yourself that you're fishing an eel. But when you feel your eel get picked up, what I like to do is 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, put my rod tip down, just reel up the slack and just lean into it.
Okay.
And it's like, it's the times that I miss a fish on an eel is that 3 Mississippi might have been 1, 2, 3, not 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi.
Okay.
And imagine how hard an eel is to just grab, what I mean, and hold.
Right.
Same kind of situation with a bass trying to eat it. So like a lot of times the bass might come up and get half of the eel and it has to fight it a little bit before it swallows it fully. So like that 3 Mississippi is crucial, and you don't want to set the hook hard with a circle hook. It's I used to be a big fan of J hooks just because that's what I was used to. But once I figured out how to actually use a circle hook, like I feel much more confident in a circle hook on an eel or any kind of live bait.
So I go out with an FG knot, right, to my leader, to my circle hook. I'm answering RA Angler's question. And then my pre-tides are in my bag. Those all have barrel swivels on them because it's just much easier to tie braid to a barrel swivel as opposed to tying an FG on the rocks. I'd rather tie the FGs at home in a controlled environment where I can make sure they're perfect. You can tie them on the rocks, they just take a little bit longer in my opinion. For me, with using eels, I don't necessarily do a count. I feel that hit, and I remember watching an old Bill Wetzel video way back in the day on YouTube. I lurch forward. I pretty much throw my rod way out in front of me and then just slowly pick it up, and when you start to feel the tension of the fish on there, just put more beef on it and it just sinks the hook. I think my hookup ratio and or land ratio on circle hooks versus J hooks or any other kind of hooks, now that I've been doing it for a few years, is higher with the circle hooks.
100%.
They sink nice and deep. They're always right in the corner of the mouth. The fight's super fun. So for me, it's that you feel a thump, thump, thump. I lurch forward with the whole rod, and then I slowly kind of bring tension on it till I feel the weight of the fish back, and then I'll just lean into it easy and give it pressure to seat the hook.
MJB, to answer your question about live line and bunker on a circle hook. So that's a lot about how you hook your bunker, right? So a little trick that I use is keep a little Gorilla Glue, and you want a lot of that hook exposed. So with the Gorilla Glue, it allows me to just put it right through the back of the bunker, just through a little bit of that meat. The Gorilla Glue like gets solid in like 10 seconds. Just put a little bit of glue on either side of that circle hook on the bunker, and that helps a lot, having a lot of that hook exposed. But I will, when I feel a hit on a live bunker.
You're using Gorilla Glue with a circle hook on a live bunker.
Correct.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then I do wait, I feel like a little bit longer when I feel a hit on a live bunker than I do on an eel. Maybe like 5 Mississippi. I actually, when I'm fishing a live lining, a live bunker, I will wait till I see my line.
I let him
Tied
take
up.
it.
Like zip out.
Yeah.
I let him
yeah.
take it.
Exactly.
So I don't fish live pogies from the shore. I have in the past, but it's not something I normally do. I do that on the boat. And with that, it's always, I feel the hit and I leave my either bail open or my spool on free spool and I let them walk with it for a while.
Right.
And then it's the same thing. Nice, slow, easy lift until you feel the pressure and then sink it. You're not setting the hook, you're just applying pressure. And then once you know it's on, just give it enough oomph to set the hook. But for me, for live line and pogie, it's always through the tip of the nose, just right through, right in one side out the other. Is like there's 2 little it's not a nose obviously, but there's 2 little indentations on the top of
The tail is
pogie.
nice too. Sometimes like it because that gets them, if they're really alive, I'll hook it through the tail, do the Gorilla Glue thing, because they swim weird, like they're injured. But yeah, I mean, you can really do it anyway, which works for you, but having a lot of that hook exposed is definitely key.
Yeah, I never do
No.
for me, I never run a long shock leader like that for bass fishing, just because it's gonna be really detrimental for casting.
I hate when
For
the
sure.
knot goes through the guides. Like whatever knot you're doing, even if you're doing an FG or whatever, it irks me so bad when the knot goes through the guides.
I would only do that if I was like
I
shark
really-
fishing
really
or
don't like
something.
that.
Yeah, but you're not casting.
Yeah.
Every time you cast, that knot's gonna go through all the guides. It's gonna slow down your cast like crazy. It's gonna get hooked up. For me, I'll do some big leaders. Like I fish the jetties a lot, so I'll use a 6-foot mono leader, either with an FG or a barrel swivel, and it's really just training. I mean, there's certain nights when the conditions are trash where you reel it up in a few times, but you just gotta condition yourself to know when to stop reeling. Be cognizant of where your lure is in the water, how close it is to you. So when you get close, even using a 6-foot leader, you're not going to reel it up into the guides, because nothing chips guides faster than reeling a barrel swivel up into it.
It's happened to me quite a few times. Really upsetting. It's frustrating when it happens. So something on the what Dave Lynch brought up that I really like is I think maybe for me at least, because I can't speak for anybody else, I will kind of go towards more of like a large soft plastic, like a GT eel, still fish it weightless, rather than throwing a live eel, because when I don't want to be dramatic about it, but when you're dealing with live bait, you're dealing with live bait, and I'll just leave it at that. But soft plastic, you just throw it in your bag, forget about it, you pick it up in a week and it's still there. So when would you guys say, all right, like I'm gonna fish this 13-inch GT eel, or I'm gonna fish a live eel, and why are we gonna fish one or the other in conditions or whatever?
I'll take that one. Honestly, when I fish live eels is primarily in the heat of the summer, where I know fish are like big fish are there. So I like to fish Boston a lot in the summertime, or Connecticut. And what I'm looking for is adult bunker. And in those months, it's so warm that it's like, you could throw plugs all night, not get a sniff, and then throw a live eel and be on, and it's way more consistent. So in the hard heat of the summer, I like to throw eels a lot. Once you get familiar, so I like how Luke does fishes eels, because it's really like he can move around, mobile. I do it kind of old school. I just get eels in a bucket from Quaker Lane and put ice on top of them.
Yeah, I get all my eels at Quaker Lane too.
Yeah, they're
just
awesome.
For the record,
They-
Quaker
I mean,
Lane's the best.
They are. They always got good size eels for casting. They're awesome guys. But the ice kind of puts them in a little bit of a coma, so that helps. And if you're on sand, it's nice. You throw them in the sand. You don't need a rag or anything.
Yep, I do that as
You
well.
know.
But, so that's why I like, another reason why I use the mesh bag
Big
Right.
ones.
is because the
Big
mesh
ones,
bag
Brian. Big ones.
acts
Yeah, big
as a
ones.
rag, right? The mesh bag itself, it's nylon, it's kind of coarse. So what I'll do is I'll open the bag. I mean, it's a relatively large bag, and I'll figure out the eel I want, and I'll grab it from the outside with the bag and work it up towards the top. So the only thing coming out of the top of the bag is the head of the eel that I have securely grabbed with this coarse nylon mesh bag, and then I just pop the hook, slide it out, put the tail in the sand so it doesn't figure eight on you. If they're really hyperactive, which a lot of times if they're sitting on the rocks in the mesh bag, they're suffocating a little bit, so they're not all that chipper. But if they are, sometimes I'll just bash the last third of the eel on a rock and try and give it some kind of trauma so it won't be able to figure eight on itself.
That mesh bag that you use, yes, a dive bag. I also have like a small laundry bag. So I got it like from Amazon, and it's typed in like nylon laundry bag.
As long as it's coarse.
Yeah,
it needs to be coarse, because I had some of the old like the basketball gym bags, just like the Nike, mesh material, and those will get
slimy.
They'll get
you're
really
right.
laden with the slime and they'll slip. But if you use a nice, if you go to a dive shop, you can pick one up for $10.
You know what's good is if I'm swimming the rocks and I want live eels, I leave my bucket like on the shore, and I'll take big Ziploc bags, and I'll put one eel. I'll put like one eel in each Ziploc bag, and I'll take like 3 out to the rock with me. And then when I want to hook them, I just grab the Ziploc bag and I hook it through the bag,
Rip it through.
and then discard the bag, put it back, put the trash bag.
He
in my
throws
surf
the
bag.
bag right in the water.
Right. Discard
I throw the bag in the water.
I did a few runs of the eel bags, Boo. They were just the meshy eel bag. I had them on my site. I probably sold 30 of them. I have one left in stock, but I have the website showing there's no stock. I just haven't reordered, and they are just a nylon scuba bag for like. I think I've been selling them for $10, but I just haven't restocked yet. I will eventually before the season.
So that eel setup that you have at home, a couple questions on that. I've heard that you always have to keep eels in a dark bucket, or else they'll change their color on their own.
Correct.
So do you have them in a dark bucket?
Always black bucket. You could paint the outside of a white bucket. I have like one of the big Home Depot. It's got to be 20-gallon, a little tote maybe, give or take. I use one of those with just about this much water with the aerator pump in it,
Okay.
and they'll last for weeks in your garage or somewhere that's cool and.
And you just have the
Dark.
aerator pump with the line going in there, or
Yep,
you have
that's
like
it,
a
with
little
a little-
filter?
No filter. You gotta wash it once a week. So I'll just I'll take the eels out with the net and put them in a holding bucket, dump it, and then fill it back up and throw them back in, and they'll live for a really long
Yeah, they're
time. In
crazy.
that, like all season long, I'll keep eels in my garage.
So, but can you take like, 'cause this is a pretty affordable, great way to store eels for yourself. Because like running back and forth to the bait shop when you're trying to just get out, maybe they're even closed when you're trying to get out and go fishing. So, are you taking 4 or 5 eels with you, and then like maybe only using a couple, and then putting the ones that you don't use back in the tank, and they live?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Great.
Most of the time. Sometimes if it's the summer, I've caught myself before where some spots I fish in Narragansett, there's a lot of big rocks, right? Cliffs rather. You're on a rock the size of a house, and there are pockets of water, stagnant water.
Yeah.
You can't put the eels anywhere near that, because if they get in there, it would be the same as putting them in a bucket with water with no oxygen in the water. They'll suffocate themselves.
Okay.
So usually I'll take stock at the end of the night. If any of them didn't survive or look kind of messed up, I'll just let them go or throw them back in. But it's not at all uncommon for me to take 5 eels out, use 2 or 3, bring 2 back home, and put them right back in until the next time I go out. And something you said, which is interesting, versus when to use soft plastics versus a live eel versus plugs. Realistically, if I had it my way and I'm not being lazy, I'm always bringing all 3 options with me, because you just never know. If the fish are finicky, sometimes they won't take a soft plastic, they won't take a plug, they'll take an eel. Sometimes if they're on a particular bait, they won't take the eel or the soft plastic, they'll take the plug. So really, to set yourself up best for success in any condition, I don't think it hurts to bring all 3 presentations.
No, to kind of add to that, there was a night, me and a buddy, Brian Testa, who I fish with, were on a bite in Newport, and one night, and we went back the next night, and I went with eels the next night. It was just plugs the night before, big eels, and Brian was still fishing plugs. Brian must have had 30 fish that night, over 20 pounds, and I stuck to the eel the whole night, and I caught 1 fish that was like 10 pounds. And so I knew there was a massive fish out there. So like eels work often a lot, and will work in situations where plugs won't a lot, but also like Luke said, having every option is key. And like I like me and Luke actually don't fish together too much. We kind of like fish different spots in different ways, try to figure out the fish, and then sometimes we'll fish together. But he'll be fishing eels at one spot, and I'll be fishing plugs at another. And any given night, one's gonna do better than the other. So I always like to have all those options.
So when you're, I like what you're saying about when you're bringing 3 different options, plug, soft plastic, and eels. When you're at a spot, and you've tried all 3 options, are you moving? You're on to the next spot, and on that, do you think that the fish are there and they're just not feeding, or do you think that the fish are not there? Because like when I'm not catching, everybody likes to talk about when they're catching, but when you're not catching, something that's on my mind is I always still think that the fish are there. I'm just not maybe presenting what they want to them the way that they want it. Or, like I struggle to come down from a 3-tube bag loaded with plugs because I never not want to have the right color, or not, I never not want to have the right, I've got a red fin with one of them's got a tail, one of them's got no tail, or one of them's light, one of them's dark, so like how do you know you've exhausted a spot, you feel confident that you're going to leave, that the fish aren't there, you're going to move somewhere else and it's going to be more beneficial for you?
I feel like, Greg and I's dichotomy is perfect for this, because Greg's definitely more one to move, try a spot for a little bit and move somewhere else. And I'm lazy. Sometimes I'll just stay at a spot and fish it all night. And sometimes, I've been in both situations numerous times where I hopped spots and it really worked out, or I hopped spots and it didn't work out. And then the same thing, I'll stay at a spot and it won't work out, or I'll stay at a spot and it'll, pay off huge a little bit later on in the tide or whatever. So that's really tough for me. That's more like an instinct thing, just how I'm feeling, the conditions at any given spot. It really depends. I don't think there's any kind of one size fits. Like, there are always so many variables at play. So
Yeah.
I never feel, I can't say that I'm going to be like, oh, I've been here for an hour and a half and I haven't gotten a bite. Well, I got to run to another spot, because you never know. You could have just as good luck if you stick it out another hour, or you could have better luck if you, go to a different spot, or you could skunk at the different spot too. So that's a tough one for me.
Yeah, I would say that, like, for me, I do bounce around a lot, and it has a lot to do with like knowing your spots, because then if you know your spots and you're fishing it at the right tide, based on experience, what has worked in the past, that will tell me in my mind that maybe they're just not there feeding tonight or something like that. But it's nice to have people like Luke or Will or Brian that I fish with, that, like, even if we're fishing the same spot, we'll make it a point to fish 2 different things until we kind of figure them out. A lot of times me and Luke will start fishing a spot together, and he'll stay and I'll go, and we'll try to
do that. I like to do that.
It's
I
like
to do that.
divide and conquer kind
Yeah.
of thing. And when the people I fish with, when we fish together, it's more like a tactical kind of, I'm obsessed with catching more and bigger fish, and the people I fish with add to that. It's more of a team thing, little competition's always fun, but the goal when I'm fishing is to catch more and bigger fish.
When you say really know a spot, so I don't feel like I really know a spot until I've fished it in multiple conditions. So I know what a 2-foot tide and a 4-foot tide does in a spot with current, because current can come from different directions when we have a lot more water, and through a couple of tide cycles, so high to low, low to high, and a few different times, a full moon, a new moon. So to me, it takes a lot to know a spot.
For sure.
Do you feel the same way on that?
Absolutely. And like spots, I was new to New England 4 years ago, and I fish a lot, but I still, up to this day, I'm checking out new spots, weekly, and
Spots change.
You have
Spots
to,
change.
and the
Yeah.
water, it's all connected. Rhode Island's a perfect example. You can go just about anywhere in Rhode Island, and if you're there at the right time,
Right.
and the variables align, there are fish there feeding. So for me, I don't write off a spot until, there's almost, and you could fish a spot 20 times in different conditions, different moon cycles, what's going on with the tide, the weather. You could fish it 20 times and not catch anything. On the 21st time, you could, strike
Right.
gold. So you can't, it's really tough for me. Even spots that I go back to year after year and do okay, eventually you're going to do really well. So it's never, for me, I never really write off a spot entirely. Like I'll always keep going back to certain spots because I saw somebody ask what helps you pick a spot, and some spots just looking at the structure and the way the water moves, it just looks fishy. And I don't care if I fished it on all the different, there's so many variations. It's tough for me to ever be like, nope, this spot doesn't ever hold fish. No, you just haven't figured out when it's holding the fish and when they're feeding.
That big fish always seem to surprise you. I catch a lot of fish on the first time I go to a spot and then don't catch big fish for a long time. It's always about putting yourself out there and being putting yourself in the position to get lucky.
Do you think that those fish are there, or do you think that your night and that fish's night, once in a while will line up, and that's why you get on the fish?
That's
or do
a
you
hard
think
question.
that? Yeah, just like what are your thoughts on it?
There
is no right or wrong answer there. But
I know that striper will tend to feed like hard, like 2 nights in a row, and then not so hard and digest.
Yeah, that's true. The digestion period. I don't think about that well.
Yeah, for another. Yeah. So, and I've seen that trend kind of play out, that pattern in I'll get into a bite one night, it's really good, maybe even better the next night, and then it just trails off, and then another couple nights down the line it turns on again. So things like that you can kind of predict. This year, actually, what I started doing in the summertime was I just got some goggles and flippers from Walmart and started swimming. So
I want to do that so bad.
The one spot that I swam.
How's the clarity? Are you talking Rhode Island water?
Yo, it's clear.
Can you see?
Yeah, you gotta pick your days, dude.
Pick your days.
Spearfish, and lots of the time you'll have 2 to 4 foot visibility if you're lucky.
Right.
But then sometimes out front you get clear water a lot more often, and if you get in Rhode Island 10 to 15 feet of visibilities, near the coast, not out near block, inshore, is pretty damn good in my opinion. Coming from I used to spearfish a lot when I was younger, so 10-foot visibility. I mean, that's awesome around here for me.
Delaware's chocolate milk, man.
Yeah.
Up here is clear. Swimming one spot this year because it's not what you ever think it is. It's just, and Luke could probably attest to this. Being down there and diving. Your mind constructs when you're fishing and you don't see under the water. Your mind constructs what you think it looks like. It's never exactly that. The one spot that I swam, I found a boulder that just lined up perfect and was a perfect break in the current. And there was a huge striper sitting right behind it. And I was like, now I cast to that spot and that line every time and I hook up. There's always fish behind that boulder that I wouldn't have known otherwise, So that's getting eyes on the structure you're fishing is definitely huge. I'm gonna keep doing that more.
That must have been awesome to plug all that in, because all the time when we talk about the basics of striped bass fishing, you're casting towards structure, you're trying to get something to sweep around a rock and present itself, because striped bass are lazy.
Right.
And a striped bass can be right behind that rock and then come at your eel or soft plastic or plug or whatever. So
I'll tell you a story.
I'll tell you
a story. So my buddy from Delaware has a house in Rhode Island and he dives a lot, and he's had a house in Rhode Island since he was a kid. And he said one summer when he was a teenager, he was diving somewhere in Rhode Island and spearfishing, but he was at a spot where there was a bunch of current, kind of like I just explained, and a big boulder, and he was kind of riding the current down, and as soon as he came past that boulder, he looked to the left of him and he said a striper whose eyes were as big as his fist. And this was the middle of the summer, and he went back there for 4 years after that, and that bass was there, the same striper. That same cow would go right to that rock and sit there all summer long and hold over, because it knew that that was its rock. It had a constant, bait stream. And so did you
ever go try to catch that fish?
He never told me exactly where it was, and I don't even know if it was accessible from a surf caster's, perspective.
Yeah.
But it's just a point to especially fish over 40 pounds, they tend to break off from the groups, and do their own thing.
They're smart fish.
Yeah,
they're smart fish.
They figure out what works for them in the summertime, and that fish found that rock, and that's what that fish probably does, almost the same exact migration route every year, varying a little bit on where the bait is. But
How many fish do you guys think actually do? Because we always talk about the Great Migration, right? How many fish do you think actually migrate now, and not actual numbers, but general speaking? And how many fish do you think are just in estuaries and back ponds and rivers up and down the East Coast, and as things get warmer, they push out? how much, I personally think that there's a lot more fish kind of in back bays than, everybody talks about.
I think our research has solely been based on those Chesapeake fish, and that migration path, which is probably like the largest percentage of migrators are doing that. But we have migrators that will go in summer, will migrate south. There'll be the holdovers in Newfoundland and migrate south to Maine. So stripers are migrators. There's breeding rivers in northern Massachusetts, the Merrimack River, the Connecticut River. These are huge breeding rivers that aren't recognized, and the research is limited, but I think that it's silly to think that all the migrators are doing the same thing.
You have thoughts on that?
I agree. I mean, I know sold some belts to some folks, some marine biologists up in Newfoundland area, and they swear that they have a whole breeding stock in the Bay of Fundy, St. Lawrence River watershed that migrates south almost all the way to Boston in the summer and then go back north. So, I mean, I don't have any concrete evidence or numbers or anything, but I would imagine from the Chesapeake all the way up to Newfoundland, there's some stock of breeding fish. I mean, if you look at all the rivers that we're discussing, there have to be fish holding over there.
Yeah.
Because guys catch them. Now it's more popular to fish in the winter. Some of the rivers we all know that guys flock to in the winter to catch holdovers. It's like those fish presumably are breeding in those waters, right? So I don't think it's
especially
far-fetched at all.
Winters have gotten milder, so I'm more apt to get out when it's not 12 degrees outside. In January or February, and catching striped bass in those months, I don't know, for me, it's great adrenaline, to catch striped bass. You're all bundled up like the Michelin Man. I mean, I look like the Michelin Man already. So with all that the stuff going on, so have you guys had any moments, just to kind of shift gears here? You're out fishing, and you guys like, holy shit, I can't believe that just happened. Do you guys have any of those moments striped bass fishing?
Oh, too many to even count. I've got two. One's more of an aha, like I learned something about fishing. And the other one's just like a haha. I had some videos of a resident raccoon that made a habit of stealing my meshy bag of eels. And I was like fighting this raccoon, and it was super stubborn, and it would take it, and it would be a while before I noticed that my eel bag was gone. And then by the time I'd find it, the raccoon would have it like caught in a rock, and it would brutalize all the eels, kill all the eels in the bag, and it would just be like a mushy, disgusting bag of like
wouldn't eat them.
Eel meat. Well, it was trying to get them through the bag, so it was just like chewing on them. So that was fun. That was at a spot in Newport. And then another more informational aha moment was one night I was fishing one of the jetties. They didn't want plugs, but they wanted eels, so I was throwing a barrel hook rig, barrel swivel to a monoliter to a circle hook, and I was drifting eels out, and I was catching fish. I got there, I was immediately hooking into fish, good fish. I wasn't landing anything though, because every time I'd be fighting the fish for a little bit. It was a full moon, by the way. Be fighting the fish for a little bit, and then all of a sudden I get cut off, and I bring back braid. And again, I'm on a jetty, so I'm using 6-foot leaders, long monoliters, 60 to 80 pounds. So after losing a half dozen eels and 6 rigs, I was pissed. Same thing every time. I drift out, I pop out of the current, set the hook, start fighting the fish, and then get cut right above the barrel swivel and the leader. So I left defeated. I got back to my truck, and as I'm pulling out, driving, and the spot's kind of hard to get to, one of these jetties is a little bit of a walk. So I thought to myself, the only thing that makes sense is I was hooking up on fish, and there were big bluefish around, and they were biting my barrel swivel because it was reflecting in the moonlight. And if I'd only had the intelligence to just do an FG or a double uni and try and throw that rig out, maybe I would have been able to land some of the fish. So that was one of those kick yourself in the ass while you're driving home, because nothing else makes sense to me why they would have been. And every time it was right above, I'm assuming it was right above the barrel swivel where I was getting broken off, because it looked like it was getting shredded. So the moon was reflecting. They must have been on small bait in addition to the eels, and I lost. That was a big loss for me that night.
Wow, that's great that you were able to plug that in though.
Well, I don't have any
I
I don't have concrete evidence because I didn't stick it out and try. I didn't have the you know, I didn't try it. But when I left, I was like, oh man, I should have tried some other kind of knot. You know, I should have tried something as opposed to a barrel swivel. Could have been a shark. I had some fish get bitten in half at that spot, but yeah. So the bubbles, absolutely, Ernest. The bubbles are the reflection, but that was more or less a takeaway for me. Is that's why I switched over to doing the FG a lot, just for that particular night. It taught me a lesson.
I caught a striper with Brian Ernest on a bare hook, dragging it through the water. I was ripping in, we were chunking, and I was ripping in bare hook because my chunk came off, and I hooked up halfway through my retrieve on a striper.
I caught a cow on a bunker snag in the mouth. It hit my bunker snag like a long time ago in Jersey. It's crazy.
That's a bunker snag.
Yeah.
Don't tell them that.
No, this was a long time ago.
Back when it was legal.
Yeah,
it
back
could
when it was legal,
it could have been a shark. I don't know. I've had some sharky interactions at that spot, but we'll never know because I left like a bitch.
I had an oh shit moment last year. Probably one of the craziest striper moments of my life. I was in Connecticut in the summertime fishing a long jetty. Daytime, there was pods of bunker sporadically, not within casting distance. I was fishing a dock, and the rock that I was on right in front of me was crystal clear water in the sound and probably like 10 foot deep. And it had probably been an hour and a half of working a dock just because I seen bunker around with no hits or anything. And I was working it back, and then like I pulled my plug out of the water and I looked down and I was just face to face with the biggest striper I've ever seen in my life. Followed my lure up all the way up and I picked it right up out of the water, and like when we locked eyes it just and there was like a wake and it swam off, and I was so pissed. If I would have just stopped my plug like right before I lifted it up.
Yeah.
Bill Dance always used to say that. He said before he ends any retrieval, stop it, like right in front of the boat. And I did that for a while. I caught a lot of fish doing it. But
really,
yeah,
I catch a lot of fish in close, dude, because I've learned by mistake. Is like, you know, the very end of your retrieve, you're no longer thinking about putting any kind of action on the lure. You're just bringing it in. And I couldn't tell you how many times I've caught fish over 30 pounds within 15 feet of the rocks. And some of the old timers in the club, they always laugh at all of us and say, you guys are so stupid. You're casting every time as far as you can. The fish are 10 feet in front of you, just sitting there waiting to ambush something. He's like, just flip it out. Nelson's always telling me that. He said, quit casting so far.
That's crazy. I was actually a friend and like a mentor of mine, Dave Anderson. We were fishing a couple months ago, and he was reeling in his, we were using some soft plastics, and he got a hit like pretty close, right? And he literally just picked his lure up out of the water and pitched it, and was on instantly. Like pitched it. He was like, wow, I didn't think that would actually work. Like, yeah. You know, I mean, like, and the other thing is big fish are smart and they're skeptical often. So they follow a lot. Oftentimes before, like a big fish that hits your plug has followed that plug for a little bit. Sometimes they'll follow it all the way to the shore and wait to hit it, because then they see that it's getting close to shore. They need to make a decision.
Gotta take
like,
it or not.
They're like, well, I followed it this long. It does look like food. I'm gonna take it. Boom. So like Luke said, a lot of big fish will hit you at your feet. And it makes me think sometimes, you know, if I could have like video footage, like a little video camera on all my plugs, you know, that I've ever used, how many fish are actually following you every night?
A lot more than you think.
Right, and how many 50-pounders have came up and just looked at your plug and followed it, and you're like not confident, you're just like burn it out of the water, you know? So like being cognizant of all that stuff and
let it sit.
Yeah.
Same with the eels too. I've gotten a lot of huge fish with eels really close to the very end of my retrieve, and you know, the temptation with eels is, the minute you get within 30 feet of yourself, I'll just burn it the rest in so you can get it back out there. And I couldn't tell you how many times in the last 30 feet I'll get picked up if I just let it hang out for a minute.
Your big spring fish this year for the tournament, the spring tournament.
That was, so that was a 45-inch, 36.5 pounder. That I got on an eel on the 106.8 blank, and that picked up within 15 feet of my feet. I was on a huge boulder. You know, deep water in front of me, 10-foot water in front of me, and like Greg said, there's boulders out in front, and it's that last split-second decision the fish needs to make. I've been following it. Am I going to take her, or is it going to go into the rocks and I'm going to lose it? And sometimes that that pause at the very end is just enough for him to be like, all right, I'm going for it. And that
Right on that structural line you're
That's
saying
exactly
is
how
like
it
really where you
happened.
want to think about it. Okay.
yeah, it will just be, let it hang a minute before you take it out of the water. I've had so many times big fish will, even in spots where you can get out to rocks at low tide, but you have to retreat by high tide because they'll be, way underwater. I couldn't tell you the amount of times where I'll back up and fish the rock I fished at, like try and drag my eel past the rock I was just fishing on
Right.
for an hour, and I'll pick up fish right at that rock where I was just fishing on it. So the fish were around my feet. I'm casting out far, and then when the tide makes me
I
retreat,
was just gonna
I'm
ask
catching
that.
them
Okay.
right where I was standing. So it's like, well, maybe I should have started, albeit the water was much lower, but
Right.
it's something to.
Another story to that. Me and Brian tested again. We're at a spot, and we were doing good, catching big fish, only big fish this night. And he was on the phone with our other buddy, and he had a Super Strike bullet needle, and he was just playing with it in front of him. And the giant striper came up and missed it. I was like, dude, that fish tried to eat you. Like, he was literally just bobbing it up and down in the water in front of him.
Or just that rod's length right in front of him.
Right in front of him on
Yeah.
a sandbar. Like, we were at 2 feet of water. This fish, like, we saw the weight come up. It was so big and miss his plug. It was crazy. So, like,
How far out do you think I asked Dave Anderson this when he came and talked at our club? So this was nighttime?
this was nighttime, yeah.
Was he hitting the water with the plug?
He was. He was
So
making
do you think that the striper was, because he couldn't see it if it's out of the water, right? So do you
Yeah.
think that he was looking at the water disturbance, or do you think he was feeling
Oh,
the
yeah.
water disturbance on the fish's like lateral lines?
I remember you asking that question
Yeah.
when he came in. That was a good question. That I think it had. They were pretty dense in there, but it had to have been, the lateral, line thing. And that's the other thing is that as humans, we all only like relate our own what we know to animals and stuff. But like striper, like vibrations in the water, build a picture in their brain of like what the plug looks like, what it might be, and I don't really know. I don't think Dave really answered that question because nobody really knows how far they can, that sense is functionable,
Yeah. Well, he
But-
sold that story about a fish that came out from
Oh,
like 100
right.
feet.
So what do you say?
So he had cast it out in kind of the opposite direction. So I asked that question to Dave Anderson when he came and spoke at the club and just kind of talked about his perspective on fishing and all that, and it was really good. So check him out, Dave Anderson. I asked him the same question about what he thinks if a fish feels your lure, or how well their eyesight is. And he said that he cast it out in the opposite direction of where this fish came from. He cast it out, his plug hit the water, the fish came from his other side 100 feet away and blasted the plug. He thinks that it could not see from that far away your plug in the water. So it felt it, and it was able to determine, a missile exactly where your plug was at from that distance. So I guess his perspective was they feel things more than they can see things.
And he said that eyesight is like a secondary sense when they're hunting at night. We all think, oh, what color with this, this and that, and and he's a big, he likes chartreuse, parrot, most visible, color to a striped bass. I was kind of joking earlier. I said I'm only throwing chartreuse next year, but I'm gonna throw it a lot more because I don't think color matters as much as I used to. I think it's more about, color probably matters after the fish has identified something with their lateral sense and they get in close. It might make that decision whether they strike or not. But color, I think, matters most when there's a lot of bait around. If there's like big bunker, I'll throw bunker color, something like that. Dirty water, dark colors.
So you guys have striped bass fish kind of before social media was a part of striped bass fishing, right?
Yeah.
So now, what has good and bad, and Luke, obviously, from a business perspective, social media is excellent for Zebo, right?
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
but just in the striped bass world, just fishing as a fisherman, what has social media done, to help or spot burn and what's your perspective on striped bass fishing and the effects on striped bass fishing locally from social media?
I think it's great from a business standpoint and glorifying it and making more people want to get into it. I think it's terrible for spot burning. For me personally, I struggle with it because I'm always super sensitive about burning my own spots. So I couldn't tell you the amount of content that I have, even having a business page that I never post, because I'll catch a fish and I'm like, oh, I gotta wait a week or two because I don't want to blow my own spot up because some guys know where I fish. So I'll sit on the content, and then 2 weeks later I forget all about it, and then a year later I'm like, oh look, these are all pictures and videos that I've never posted. And so that I get myself into that trap all the time, where I'll just sit on stuff and not post it, even though I probably should because I got the business page, but I'm too selfish and I don't want to shoot myself in the foot. That being said, with regards to spot burning, I feel as though I could tell a lot of the people the spots I fish, and those people, the vast majority of them, aren't going to put in the time and the work to go figure out when the fish are there. So I'm not really too worried about saying, oh, I fish here and here, because there's a lot more to it than just the location, as we touched on earlier. There's so many things that go, it takes a long time to figure out when a spot's going to be right and not. Like, I know Gray has a handful of spots like that. I'm sure you do. I know I do, where I can more or less, it'll be odd if, I look at all the variables in like a spot I've been going to for years. I have a pretty good idea whether or not I'm going to be able to catch fish there at any given set of conditions, right? So I've actually, maybe once or twice, I've shot myself in the foot where, talking to people at the shows or whatever, I'll mention a spot and, allude to, you gotta, if you want to be there, you gotta be there in the middle of the night when this is going on. And maybe once or twice guys have shown up and be like, oh yeah, you said you should be here. I'm like, well shit, I'm leaving. So maybe once or twice out of the thousands of people I've met and talked to at the shows. But so I think it's like anything, it's a trade-off. Social media is good and bad. I guess it really depends on the lens at which you're looking at it. So it's good for business, bad for claim jumpers, people that don't want to put in the work and they just want everything handed to them.
I think Luke said a couple of good things there too. Like, first, I played lacrosse growing up, and a big excuse for lacrosse players, like if they miss a shot or something, is, oh, my stick, I gotta restring my stick or something. But my dad coached me, and a saying he used to always say is, it's the wizard, not the wand.
True,
right?
True.
So if I see that there's a lot of people at a spot or leaving a spot, I've fished with people when people are leaving a spot, they're like, there's no fish here. I'm like, dude,
oh
what?
my God, so many times.
I'm, like,
I'm so glad you said that.
Fished this
I'm so
spot.
glad you said that.
I'm like, do you see? No offense to any of these guys leaving, but like in my own head, I'm like, they didn't fish it the way I would.
It ain't been fished till I fish.
Right.
Yes. Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
But personally, if you want to sacrifice, I need to get me all worked up over there. But personally, I think social media, if you want to sacrifice a lot of things and like do what others want to get to different spots, a lot of spots I fish, I know I'm not running into anybody because they're not putting in the effort.
Same.
And the spots that people know and blow up on social media, yeah, they can be good. I still fish them sometimes, but like.
I like when you post like your description of your fishing night with like the blurriest photo ever.
Yeah.
And it's like, I swam through 3 football fields of the ocean and a shark tried to eat me, but I got this giant fish.
Yeah, dude, those are the best spots, man. Like, you got to do what others don't to catch the fish that others won't. You know what I mean?
I really like that wizard thing. What's that again?
It's not the wizard, it's not the wand.
It's the wizard, it's not the wand. I really like that.
Yeah, to give me an ugly stick and, some pen spin fisher, I'm out fishing Luke any day of the week. So.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of people? I'm out fishing Luke. Do you
Numbers talk.
Do you get a lot of people that are like messaging you and they're like, oh, like, can you take me out or feed me information, or do you get a lot of that in from social media? Because I know you're
mainly dick pics. I get a lot of dick pics. Mainly from Luke.
I know. So we weed through those.
But I like them. No, I don't think I'm anything special, but when somebody messaged me to go fishing and stuff, I like to fish alone, really, a lot. It's like, that's my peace of mind, my solidarity. Like, that's what I enjoy about fishing. And it's, but if people, message me with questions that I have answers for, I love helping them out, pointing them in the right direction. Because, a lot of people have done that on my way getting to where I am.
Yeah, of course. It's been like, and like, I say this like all the time. I think that like what the fishing community can do once you get into it at a certain level, once you have a certain commitment to it. You know, we wouldn't be here right now doing this, and this is great. So, like, you know, just go fishing, and you don't know, you know, what'll come from that. I'm trying to help people out and, you know, help them be more proficient. One time I was on a jetty, and I was doing well, and it was just me and this one other gentleman on the jetty, and he didn't have any like gear or anything. He was just kind of casting out, and his line was like up and behind him when he was casting, and he had like a steel leader on, and he wasn't catching any fish. And you know, he was like, "Hey man, like, what should I do?" And I was like, "Well, you have a steel leader on, and your line is going that direction, and the fish are over there." And
I just told him to go home.
he was like,
Luke's mean, dude.
he was
Luke
like, "Oh, all
bullies
right."
people.
And so I like told him
Sometimes.
those things, and he like didn't fix any of those things and continued to not catch any fish. And I was frustrated, you know, like this guy had nothing to do with me, but like I was frustrated because the fish were right in front of him, and I felt like I told him a couple of things that he needed to adjust, and he didn't. And I was,
You can lead a horse to the water.
Yeah,
I
it
feel
was-
as though I get a lot of guys on the business page will reach out and say, "Hey, I'm coming up to Rhode Island. You give me some tips." And I mean, for me, there's so much more to it. It's like, yeah, sure, fish Narragansett, fish Jamestown, fish any of the spots I'm not going to be at tonight. But at the same time, it's like you can give. That's such a small piece. Like,
Yeah,
you,
so-
you need to just go out and just fish, and don't be overly concerned with getting the results. It's just have fun fishing, and everything else will come. If you like going out there and grinding and actually doing the fishing part of it and not just the catching, I think you'll find it a lot more rewarding than just trying to get all the keys up front and, you know, just go off reports like Greg. It's just not
Yeah.
something that
Greg's report and social media's report, what I wanted to say on that, thank you for bringing that back up. Reports are late. Reports are always late. You know, you're not, you know, that bite that, you know, you think you know where he was or whatever, that was not last night. That was not that spot that you think it's at. Go find your own stuff.
You know what's great is when I know I'm doing something right, is when somebody like comments on one of my posts and they're like, "Oh, I was there last night." I was like,
Nah,
"Yeah, you were. You're right.
you were.
You know, you weren't."
Yeah, you do learn more from skunk nights or nights
Absolutely,
that.
yeah.
So, like for instance, we were talking back about my, you know, that 49 pounder I got on the striker last May was my biggest ever surf caught bass, and before that fish, it was 38 and a half pounds, and it was 30 and a half pounds for 6 years. I was stuck on 38 and a half pounds. Now, I'm not saying I didn't catch a bunch between 30 and 38 over those 6 years, because I did, but 6 years, you know, stuck at 38 and a half. And when did I get the 50? When I was, or the 49, I was just out having fun testing a rod blank. I had no, you know, I wasn't there going for a trophy. So it happens when you least expect it. So you just gotta enjoy going out more so than, you know, taking a picture with the big fish, I think. And Wombat, I just got the 5x5 telescoping boxes. I have a few of each of the striker models in stock. I'll have them at all the shows. I'm gonna be at the Jersey Surfcasters show next week down at the Brookdale Community College, I think, and then and then I'll be at the Ward Melville show, and then I've got the Edison show in New Jersey, the Big Saltwater Expo show, and then the Mohegan Sun show. So I will have striker builds, USA made, at all of those shows for sale. So by all means, come give one a wiggle and take one home.
Yo, that Steve Wombat Chugger Vinny,
Yeah.
Delco represent. He's a Philly guy who lives in Connecticut now. Great fisherman. Somebody you should probably get on here. He's an awesome guy.
Yeah,
He
definitely.
loves your stuff.
Definitely. He just picked up a bunch of bucktails from me. I really
Yeah.
appreciate that. Definitely like spread the word on that too. So definitely
He's
really
a
appreciate
legitimate
that.
fisherman.
Wombat.
Somebody I bounce like ideas off of and stuff. He fishes alone a lot, you know, but he stays on fish, all sorts of fish. And he's a Delco guy, Philadelphia. Let's go Flyers.
Are you good? That felt good.
Let's go Flyers.
Is there anybody that you guys look up to, whether it's a peer or you know, an older fisherman or you know, anybody that you idolize in the fishing world, fishing community?
Nobody that anyone would know, or they're not on social media. They don't take part in any of that. A lot of the older guys, I cut my teeth in Charlestown when I was 18 out there, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I knew how to fish. I didn't understand the etiquette, you know, associated with surf casting. And I mean, I know a bunch of old timers that can't really fish out on the jetty anymore that taught me more about fish. I've already forgotten, half of the stuff they taught me, but definitely nobody that's out on social media now, to be honest with you.
Luke ran into Mike from Mike Custom Plugs.
Oh, what a great guy. Yeah, I just, again, you got all the fanboys out there trying to grab his wiener, and I just met him randomly fishing. He was, again, one of the, a lot of the old timers can't make it out to the jetty anymore, so him and another old timer I know, Al, were fishing the pocket. They were catching fish, and they were watching me on fish for a while, and I came back and we were just chewing the fat for a while on the beach by the trucks. And when the guy Al made fun of me for not knowing who Mike was, I was like, "What? Hey Mike, nice to meet you, whatever." And I've since become friends with Mike. He's a really, really down to earth, good guy, really cool guy. His brother lives locally as well, so I met his brother, and really, really cool dudes.
I would say Dave Anderson, obviously, but another dude that I look up to and as a surf caster is Dylan Jewell, LI Bass Hunter from Long Island. Dude is just an amazing fisherman. He fishes the same way I do, a big part of it is being where the fish are, he swims out in some sharky waters to some sandbars out there to catch big fish. He's a beast. And he's an awesome guy too. He's a good friend, and check him out, LI Bass Hunter.
Sweet. All right, awesome. I appreciate that. Those are, even though they're not on social media, I think that there's a lot of really proficient, I'd say almost most really old school proficient striped bass fishermen or women are not on social media. There's so many people that I know that, I say so many people, a handful of really great striped bass fishermen that do not ever post a single picture on Facebook.
You want to know why that is because stripe, and I think it's the same reason why Luke looks up to some of them guys, is because like when we started surf casting, there was it was kind of like skateboarding. I skated growing up, and it was like kind of like skaters had an attitude, surf casters had an attitude, didn't want to tell people shit, mainly because they were catching these fish and keeping them and for money, you know what I mean? So it was like a business, but like it was surf casters like my dad, he's not talking to anybody that comes out there. Somebody comes out to a spot, he's giving them a dirty look, but they would also respect each other and in each other's space, but that has all changed, and it's become like there's nothing wrong with it. It's become like a social network and like something for like a fraternity almost, of people like bragging about their gear and this and that, and they like going out and hanging out with a bunch of guys, which honestly sounds a little gay to me, but
We're all for it.
yeah.
No, a quick story for me. Again, I'm 18. I start fishing the jetties, and the old timers come out, Rhode Island old timers, and say, "Hey kid, you're not doing it right. Do it like we're doing it, or don't fish here." And I was very quick to get in line because I knew they had more knowledge than me. So I was more than happy to do as they said because they had the experience and the knowledge. Albeit what I was doing was working, it wasn't working with the small community that we had. So I fell in line, and I was better for it. I learned so much from all these guys that I wouldn't have learned otherwise if I wanted to be a little bitch about it. And now I'm no old timer, but I remember specifically a time last year where I was at one of the jetties I fish, and there were a few younger kids, had to be between 18 and 22. When I got there fishing, they had like book bags laying all over the jetty. They weren't doing the shuffle. They were just kind of hogging the front of the rock. So I gave them 10 or 15 minutes. And then I said, "Hey guys, we're going to do the shuffle now." Like I was with a buddy, and I was like, "This is how we fish this spot." I may have been a little snarky. I was like, "Move your book bags back behind the main rock there. That's where you keep your shit. Like, just fall in line. This is how we fish it. We're all going to fish it. We're not going to fish it." And they got all butthurt and grabbed their stuff and left and went, and they drove their daddy's pickup truck down the beach and almost rode the damn thing. But it's like, don't take it the wrong way. If somebody, I'm sure there's circumstances where there are douchebags out there that just want you out of their spot, which is understandable. They don't have any right to the spot, but they're going to be douchers. But I wasn't trying to be rude. I was just trying to say, "Hey, you guys don't look like you know what you're doing. This is how we fish this spot. It's going to be better for everybody if you do it the way I would like to do it." So just be open-minded. Don't be a little bitch about it.
Yeah. Also, like if I go to a spot and it's a spot that it fits two people, and even if there's just one other person out there that I don't know, like I might either just leave and say he got there, it's his spot, or I'm gonna walk up and I say, hey man, do you mind if I'm like right here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
don't just walk up 10 feet between somebody,
Right.
glare your headlamp at them, and
Right.
start fishing next to them. It's like, don't do that. Don't be
No.
that guy.
And
Little
know how
communication.
know how that guy's fishing. He was there before you, so like if he's fishing, if you may go like think you're far enough away, 20 yards away, but he may be casting in a line that's like right in front of you.
Yeah, how
You know
hard
what
is
I
it to wait for 10 minutes,
See
watch
what he's
him
doing.
cast,
Yeah.
see what he's doing? And, I don't know, I run into it a lot where people get like that. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, or more so rather, I get like that because someone will just blaze right
Yeah.
up on me. I'm standing in complete darkness.
Right.
I haven't had my light on for 30 minutes, and they just run right at me with the light, and then they're just standing 10 feet from me casting, trying to be buddy, and it's like, that's no. Like, if you were like, hey, do you mind if I fish here? First thing I'll tell you, turn off that headlamp and don't turn it on again,
Right.
unless you got a fish that you need, to not get your hooks in your hand or something.
And not because he's better than anybody else, but because he was there. So like you don't walk up on where I am, and affect how I'm fishing. If you're gonna walk up on somebody, make sure you're not affecting how they're fishing or changing how they're fishing, because that's just respect. Like I think, nowadays nobody has respect out there.
No, and one of my great mentors, reading that comment from Sigma, I couldn't tell you how many guys I'm close with now that I fished with next to for years, only in the dark, never had phone numbers, never exchanged any information. I never even knew what the guys really looked like because we were just fishing the same spots. We both knew the spots, so we know when to be there. And I mean, now I know these guys, they help me with stuff. It's like the connections you can make are real if you have etiquette and you follow the code. Don't be a douchebag, just be polite and give somebody the benefit of the doubt. In my opinion, like Greg said, if somebody's there, I don't care if it's your spot. If they're there before you, you're encroaching on what is their spot right now because they were there first. So I think that's a big part of it, is just be respectful. And, I talk about the code, just don't be a douchebag is what it really comes down to.
I think everybody's quick to get mad instead of just communicating. I think everybody jumps to fuck that guy, I'm pissed at you, instead of just saying hey, a little bit of communication like you guys are talking about.
Rodrigo, the goats are coming for you, dude.
Yeah, Rod, we were just talking about you. We heard there were ghosts at a spot that we all fish, and you're scared of ghosts, buddy.
Dude, it kind of makes sense. I thought it was animals, but they tell me it's different. So, I don't know. Anything else you guys want to talk about? You want to talk about the bottle plugs?
Well, you had originally said what are our favorite lures. So one of my favorites is the Super Strike Little Neck Swimmer. Even when I was super green, this was probably one of the first lures aside from a Rapala or an SP Minnow. Always have a couple of these in my bag. Minimum 2 in case I lose one. For me, this is one of the most versatile plugs you can have. It casts forever in any kind of wind condition, and they just produce fish. You can fish it so many different ways. I love the Super Strike Little Necks, and really all bottle plug style swimmers, and pencil poppers. Those are probably my two favorites. I love the bomb plugs. If you can get one, covet it, because my bomb swimmers and my bomb pencils and the bomb, really everything the bomb offers is awesome. He goes in and out of production. But if you can get yourself a bomb plug in any way, shape, or form, definitely go for it. But yeah, Super Strike bottle is one of my favorites.
Those are pretty cool. You were showing me them.
Is he on social media?
He is. Yep, it's at the Bomb Fishing.
If you ask me what my favorite plug is, I'm going to give you a different answer depending on the time of the year.
No, well, that's not the question. Just what's your favorite?
Probably.
Sometimes I like turkey sandwiches, and
No,
sometimes
like I
ham
can't even
sandwiches,
answer that.
but-
I can't even answer that.
So
What do you
rush
mean?
my
What's the
spots,
plug?
Luke. Oh,
This
I'm gonna
plug-
be there, boy.
This
I'm
plug
gonna be
is
there
in
again.
this plug
I would
be-
say it's soft plastic. If I had one plug, it'd be a Zinger Baits, soft plastic. Definitely.
It's in your bag every single time you go out. What's in your?
I mean,
so-
I
and-
always have soft. I pretty much
Yeah.
always have everything. Bucktails, soft plastics.
Because if I'm
plugs.
fishing a sweep or a current, I want a darter. Or if I'm fishing around Peanut Bunker, I want a 401 plug South County Swimmer. Or I always have a SP Minnow. I always have But I would say probably the lure that I fish most throughout the year would be soft plastic Zinger Baits.
More like a
Oh,
dock.
Oh, I do fish a dock a lot.
All this kid fishing.
I fish dock at night all the time, and I do really well. Actually, it's crazy. When there's
Weighted or
bunker-
unweighted?
Just how it is, just how I do during the day. If there's a bunker around and they're active, and you're not hooking up on like metal lips or anything, just walk a dock super
dock
slow,
at
one at a
night.
time, like this. Dink, 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 and it's just going dink, dink, like as slow as you could imagine, and then just stop for like 3 seconds, like slow, dumb fishing.
Yeah.
You know?
So what you guys have talked about and like what you're saying right now is, and I think that your presentation or your philosophy on striped bass is maybe similar to mine. I think that things that are baits or presentations that are more natural rather than crazy erratic movements have just been more successful for me. And this is, again, I know I talked about this last time, this is why I struggle to fish a metal lip, because the thing is going through the water like going
Right.
crazy, but I know that people like slam fish on them, but I really struggle.
I think that goes a lot to what Dave said, is a lot of times the advantage of that deep dive and metal lip is getting it to where you want it in the column and then leaving it and letting it do its slide, so you're, again, bait fish in current aren't darting around crazily always, like you're saying. They coast a lot, right?
Right.
They just ride and try and be perfectly still.
That being said, have you guys ever, because I have, and Brian Testa is a big fan of working a mag darter, crazy, like as crazy as you could, like burn it, jig it, burn it, jig it, and there's been nights where he's caught cow bass and I've skunked.
I've caught fish doing crazy
Like just erratic. Like
Yeah.
there's been nights where I've done that too, like burning, like I'm done with my cast and I'm burning it back, and that's the only way I catch a big fish. But
How often do you change your cadence?
Every cast.
yeah,
Every cast.
until I figure it
I
out.
find the one that's working.
But honestly, I just am a fan of slow. I'll like start off slow. If I'm not getting hit, I'll go slower, and then like sometimes I'll change it up. I'm pretty consistent. I know Luke, most people I fish with change it up a lot more than I do. I'm pretty slow and steady. Who's I forget his name right now. I'm stupid. The Sluggo guy, Steve McKenna. He's a big fan of, like, you ask him how to use a lure, he goes, you cast it out and reel it back. And that's kind of like what I do. And
I have a
just go
buddy like
slower.
that, dude.
Yeah.
I have a buddy that just, no matter what he's fishing and it works for him,
Right.
he just casts out and does one same speed retrieve. Not
Right.
fast, not slow, normal. Just every cast, and he'll catch fish.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I mean, it could go, there's so many different things, and I find myself varying my retrieve all the time, and I'm a big fan of the dead stop, though.
Oh yeah.
I really like letting it sit for 5 to 10 seconds, and then I'll do a really slow retrieve.
It's
and
usually
then,
went right when you pick back up and start retrieving.
when
again,
you slow start. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
You start to bring it in, you'll get a hit.
Mhm.
40 pounders in April, Greg. Let's
Somebody
go.
asked before we
50s
skip
this
it.
year.
Hell yeah,
Big
bro.
boy.
Before we skip it, red lights and green lights. I don't know if I care.
Blue light is the best, most visible. Any colored light is going to affect the striper the same way as a red light.
You know what's so funny? Jerry Odette the other night at Solar Edge was like, do not fucking bring a blue light out.
Oh man.
I don't use it.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't use a blue light. I use a red light. But
I just use
I
red
like
and
blue
white,
lights.
dude. Red and white
Blue
is
and
all I,
purple
just
is nice.
because that's the most available. I know on the headlamps I like, it's red and white.
I don't
Yeah.
use this year I got a lot into just like trying to get my night eyes down. And I know there's a lot of the
Yeah.
spots that I fish a lot to where I don't, even on a new moon, I could walk out there, no light. And, but there's times where I need a white light. If I put on my white light, it's not facing the water, I'll, go back in a little corner and hold my white light down if I have to. But, yeah, I've gotten better at, navigating with no light.
And I know I think that like we always talk about light in regards to fish. I think of light about, like, say we're walking down a path, there's a lot of fishing spots you have to walk pretty far, and if there's somebody else there, they can see your light coming down the path.
yeah.
Or if you come off the path and you go down to the shoreline or whatever you're doing, they can see where you just popped down
I
to.
found
So-
the best spot this year. Fishing in Connecticut. I look across the sound, right? And I see a couple of red lights. And then every 10 minutes, I'm just seeing camera flashes. Flashes. I pull up Google Maps satellite, right? I'm like, oh, they must be right here. I go over there. They weren't there. I found like an awesome spot. Those guys just gave it away. Of course, I'm not. I mean, of
That's
course,
what
I'm going
I'm
to jump on
saying.
that opportunity.
That's what I'm
and it's
saying.
a great spot, but like, be aware, I'm out there.
Right? So that's what I mean. Like, we always talk about lights as far as like fish go and spooking the fish, and we can get into that. I don't think that striped bass are as sensitive as I think a lot of other people do. Because
I disagree.
you think that they're really sensitive?
Absolutely, I can
don't
tell
know.
you, walking back I fish the back ponds a lot, and towards the mouth of the jetty, it's not uncommon to see fish in the current, and if you go up to them in pitch black, they will sit there and just ride in the current.
Right.
And the minute you put a light on them, they leave.
You ever
They
looked over a
swim
bridge
away.
where they're
They'll disperse.
and you turn on your light and you see a bunch of striper? They're gone. The
Yeah,
second that
but
light
at the
comes
same
on.
time, they're in that bridge underneath a bright ass.
Yeah, but
streetlight,
that light
playing-
is natural
playing
to
the
them.
shadow line.
Because
It's
it's
always
always
there.
there.
It's
Yeah.
there.
It's always there.
So they
It's
Yep.
consistent.
so they use it as
See what
structure.
happens when you say things out loud to other guys? This is what I'm talking about.
Well, you want to
Yeah.
hear a crazy story about structure? They did a study once. They put a bunch of largemouth bass in a big fish tank, right, with nothing, just water, and they were all spread out randomly. And then the guy draws with a permanent marker a line across the center of the tank, and they all go to the line just because of that little bit of structure.
Really?
Yeah. So like a shadow line. Imagine a shadow line. They're sitting in the dark. They see the bait. The bait can't see them. You know what I mean? So
This is why I hate fishing like open beaches. Like I went out to Montauk
Mhm.
and I like felt like it was my first day. Like give me a dauber and like
Right.
give me some worms for some sunfish because like going out. The first night I fished Montauk, I blazed through the boulder fields around the lighthouse,
Mhm.
and guys were catching some fish on bucktails on the beach, and I was obviously super into that, and I was successful, and I got some bucktails on the beach, but I'm just like casting into the waves,
Right.
like
Right.
and learning how to fish beaches. I give you guys a lot of credit that know how to fish beaches the right way because
That's kind of like how I grew up fishing. Delaware's flat sand. Jersey's basically flat sand. I look at it as like high altitude training. That's why I moved up here. It's like you just feel more confident casting into all that structure, without knowing what's there, because the beach always changes too. But some of my favorite spots up here are beach spots as well. So
my fishing spot sucks. I'm gonna follow the headlamps. I don't know how many times that like I'll be walking out, no lights, nothing on, from like the time I leave my car, to where I'm going, and I just am looking for other people that are out there. Whether it's across the bay, as far as I can see, or lights coming on. I will be miles from somebody, but I know that there's a point, and if it's a clear night, you can see their headlamp going on and off. That's the small things to pay attention to. I so far I don't want to talk about any places, but you just pay attention to little things like that.
for sure.
And I've done it like an animal, like stalking somebody. You just sit on the top of a hill and you're looking down at lights coming on or coming off. Just give it 5 minutes. You can see who's successful or who's not, or if there's
Who's
nobody.
a moron?
Just if you're going down into a clown fest, or you just go the other way. So just pay attention to small stuff like that. I think lights can give a lot away.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen some scary things on jetties, dude. This past season, a couple of young kids came out and they had like Timberland boots on, and
Gangster.
in the wetsuit. I don't spend a lot of time on jetties anymore. That's where I definitely kind of cut my teeth. I cut my teeth in the Providence River actually chunking pogie off the beach. But once I got into surf casting, it was off the jetty. And two kids this past season, I was out on a rock and I look over, dude, kid in Timberlands, went to go down, boof, just absolutely ate shit. So what I'm getting at is safety. Just corkers, man. You just don't go to the spot if you don't have them. You're gonna get hurt. You're gonna break your leg, and then
I legit almost died this year.
nightmare for everybody.
Matt Bauer, I Fish LI, can attest to it. We were fishing during a big swell. It was like 15 to 20 foot. And there's a big rock that we were standing on that you had to wade through waist high water to get up to the other rock. And the waves were crashing in that area. And I was just cocky. And I just didn't even look. And I just hopped down and just got taken out. And I used to surf. I'm a good swimmer. I'm good in big waves, but it was like a little channel, and I had no control over my body. It was just taking me out into the surf, and then thank God, the rip current hit the shore and then brought me back up to where I was. But for a split second, I thought I was a goner. There was the power of the ocean is no joke.
Seriously.
When all in doubt, ditch your gear.
Right.
Yeah.
Luke's big on safety. I mean, I should always carry a knife, for that reason.
What are you gonna do with a knife? Cut braid?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
cut shit off you.
A pot line or trap. I mean, there's
Right.
so many things. You don't know what's under the water.
Right.
Yeah, true.
There can be an old
True.
lobster pot with 100 feet of rope attached to it. That'll, if you get your foot in or something.
I wear my PFD often when it's sporty out or if I'm swimming far,
We
and
did.
that makes me feel like Superman.
I do like the PFD, man, just
Yeah.
because it's such a simple, affordable thing that will save your life.
Right.
Like literally save your life. You go
Right.
from how long can I tread water for to, all right, let me either, just have this thing on. That I think your Mustang is always, it's always a life jacket, right?
Always.
My PFD, it's like 5. Test everything, by the way. Test your stuff all the time. Because just because you have it on, you think it's gonna work, you might have a hole in it from somewhere, and you don't know, and then you're.
Yeah, my shit is it's like it's buoyant. Your wetsuit is also buoyant. So, but it's also really slim as it is. But a couple spots I swim to are like a quarter mile, and it's more of a float. But there's like a blow up, personal. You blow it up, and it'll blow up real big.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
And
Test that.
then
Test
I'm on
that.
my back, and I have my rod and stuff here, and I'm just kicking with my feet, and it's kind of relaxing. And then it
Now
also
I'm
has like an
thinking about
emergency. Yeah, it also has an emergency CO2 pool. So like if I got washed off like into a breachway or something, I can just reach down and pull it. I tested it once and it just blows right up, and then you're just floating out to sea. And I have a waterproof phone case, so I could like call the Coast Guard, be like, hey man, I'm floating.
Dude, the waterproof phone case. There's a couple things that I want to bring up from the Jerry Audette seminar I went to a couple nights ago. He has a burner phone.
What kind of drugs is he selling?
I don't know. And this isn't saying anything bad about him. That's not what I'm getting at. But he has a burner phone that he uses to bring out with him on the rocks, I guess, so he doesn't mess up his regular phone. I have a
So it's not it's a burner phone.
That's
So
what
he
he
doesn't. A
described it.
burner phone, you
That's
would
what
have
he
to track
described
He
it.
just
right?
has a secondary phone.
That's
that-
what he called it, a burner phone. So
Well,
I'm just
I
using
don't
his
think
words.
you can do that anymore. Now they track all. Like you can't just go buy a phone and put minutes on it anymore. I don't think.
That's
right?
what he was saying he was doing.
I thought
Or then
they
he like
tracked
got
one.
one from
Nevertheless.
whatever.
Luke is rich. He doesn't know about poor
he
people
called it
problems.
he called it a burner phone, and he like puts it in a thing in his wetsuit. I just have a waterproof case for my phone and my car key
Aren't all the
by
phones
Yugo. They're water
waterproof
resistant.
now?
They're water resistant.
I mean, my stupid phone has seen a lot of water.
No, yeah, I use a Walmart like around the neck case.
I've got one of those too.
That's and then I
But I
tuck it
don't
in my
use it.
wetsuit.
Yeah, I have the same thing. I just have it was like $100, and I bought it like 3 years ago. And it comes with like a little chapstick thing that you keep the zipper from drying out and to keep it waterproof, and it's really good. And the other thing, it was like a wetsuiting seminar, and I feel like a lot of what was talked about was like how to be comfortable in the wetsuit itself, like literally just being comfortable in the wetsuit. There's a lot of things when you get into the wetsuiting that, I like what he just brought up. You don't just jump in the ocean. You can't just go to a spot and jump in. You could jump in and then a wave is coming at you and poof, you're right up against the rock and it's all over. So, if you're going to get into wetsuiting, pay attention to stuff like that.
Can you say anything?
Some people are trying to make the wetsuit game more comfortable for the surfcaster.
Keep your
They
eyes
might
open.
even be more durable, but
Might have waterproof phone case.
who knows what could happen in the future. I don't like to talk about things until I have them to sell.
Oh my goodness.
So-
You tried. That was
Yeah.
Also, can we get a waterproof zip patch on the Z-belt?
That's
For
what
the
we're getting
fish
at.
whistle. Working on it, champ. Working on it.
Apple AirTag in the
I've
waterproof
actually,
case.
come see me at the shows. I've got these little dry cases right now.
He does have those. They're pretty sweet.
Um,
Actually, that would be perfect for
They're
that.
super cheap. It's good for a phone. I'm sorry, not a phone. It's not big enough for the phone, but it's good for a car key, like an electronic key fob or something like that, and a fish whistle. I got them at the shows for mad cheap, but more in the works eventually. Thank you, Larson.
You want
I
that?
can't
You want to talk about it?
can't wait to fish the Parrot level sync inspired Needle
Yeah.
You Made Me. That was all because of the Dave Anderson talk at our Surfcaster thing, and so yeah, I'm excited to fish it. I can't wait. I owe you. I'll see you at this show this week. I've ruined some pre-rolls. I bet you have.
Tell me about
See
it.
Mohegan. Yeah, I'll be there. I'll have them. I got them in green, brown, no, FDE, OD green, and black. So whatever suits your little fancy.
So do you guys have just one last little thing you want to either say to fishermen or to new fishermen or women? You know, do you have a last little tidbit that you want to get out to these guys?
Just keep doing what makes you happy.
Yeah, just happiness, the pursuit of happiness.
But as long as it doesn't bother me.
I would say always, 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 if you go fishing, carry a knife. That's it. That's what I tell everybody. Carry a knife for safety, not for shivving other fishermen. Just, you never know you need to cut something. I've always had friends that decide to go fishing without a knife, and then for some reason they're always like, hey, can I borrow your knife? It's like, no, bring your own fucking knife.
Right.
Part of my language. Always carry a knife for safety. Am I growing the Z-Belt strains yet? No, I got out of that game years ago. That was long before Z-Belt. Market's too saturated now, champ. I missed that bubble. I should have moved out to Colorado a decade ago, and I didn't. So
Yeah, Luke is like an average fisherman, but he's like Stephen Hawkins when it comes to gear. He's like
that's
like
right.
dumb with fucking everything, but like
Yeah.
gear,
Yeah,
he's the man.
that's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely fucking excellent.
Stephen Hawkins over there.
Oh man. So a quick couple things that I want to bring up. Safety is huge. Try to be nice to each other. Try to have an attitude when somebody's trying to teach you something. And mental health. Mental health is very important. You can reach out to anybody that's ever on this show if you're having a tough time and you